Chapter 26 Bloody Sunday Part 3 Braithwaite School, 3 p.m. Nearly. Mark Jensen, Simon Snade and Johnny Dipp were setting up the cricket pitch in readiness for the match that would begin soon. Jensen hammered the wickets into the sun-baked ground and checked his watch. "It's nearly 3, Simon, and Harry's still not here."
"Don't worry, dude. He'll be here. He wouldn't miss this for the world."
"Maybe not the world, but what about a certain young lady who, when she bends down, the sun shines out of her ass?" asked Jensen, pulling a crooked smile.
"Come on, Jan. Have some faith, dude. He'll be here. I'm sure of it."
"I don't know, Simon. I reckon he's gone soft, and I don't think for 1 minute that he'll turn up."
"I don't agree, man. I just can't see him not turning up. It goes against everything that he is."
"Everything that he was, you mean?"
"Yeah. Good one, Jan."
"Well, he'd better be here soon, 'cause we're nearly ready to start. But if you're unsure, will we really miss the flower-sniffing love god?" Simon laughed.
"Love God. I like that. But I still think he will be here."
"I'll believe it when I see it, Simon. I'll believe it when I see it," sighed Jensen. A voice resonated from behind them.
"You better believe it, chaps, because here I am,"
chimed Harry, appearing as if from nowhere.
Well, well, well.
Hello, Harry. I knew you'd come. Didn't I just say that, Simon?"
Yeah, sure you did, dude."
Jensen looked at Harry. He was dishevelled, covered in dust, and his trousers were pink, but remarkably clean, and they had the fresh aroma of a pine forest. But he didn't ask about the trousers. He was sure there'd be an illogical explanation for those. There always was with Harry Spider. Jensen had known Harry all of his life, and in a second his facial expression told him everything. He knew he was troubled. Something had obviously gone horribly wrong at Victoria's, but he also knew not to ask him. Not yet, anyway. There was a cricket match to be played, and there would be no distractions until after it was finished. They all knew that. And then, bang on time, the opposition arrived. The cow riders ambled up the hill to the school. Scruffy-looking buggers, the lot of them. The first 2 were of slight build, the middle bunch slightly stockier, but the standout boy at the back was huge. Already at the age of 15, he was 6 feet tall with a wide and powerful build. This was Butcher. John Butcher, the toughest kid around. The other boy stopped to let the bigger boy through. Harry stepped forward to meet him. Butcher was a good 10 inches taller than Harry, and he stood intimidating the smaller boy. Then the face-off began. After a while, Butcher spoke. "Now then, shitface," he growled. Harry did his best Clint Eastwood snake eyes.
"Now then, dog breath,"
he replied. "Who are you calling dog breath?" asked Butcher.
"Who are you calling shitface, dog breath?"
asked Harry, even though he knew the answer. But it was the kind of stupid question that you asked in such circumstances. "I'm calling you shitface." "Shitface."
"And I'm calling you dog breath."
"Dog breath." Butcher looked Harry up and down, and he spotted the pink trousers.
"Oh my God! What's with the puffy pink pants, Nancy boy?"
Two very popular 70s expressions. Harry looked down at himself. He'd completely forgotten that he was wearing ladies' slacks, and he couldn't think of a good comeback, so he just turned red with embarrassment. Lucky for Harry, though, Jensen had grown impatient with all the tough guy shenanigans, and he jumped in. "Look, Dog Breath, Butcher, can we do this later? We've only got 7 hours of daylight left." It was the same every year. Only in previous years, Butcher hadn't been quite that big. So when it ended up in a fight, and it usually did, Harry and Butcher had been pretty much evenly matched. But this time, Harry had his doubts. But what the hell? His world had just fallen apart, and he was hurting like never before. And this was a different kind of pain. A pain that was entirely new to him, and greater than any. The pain of his first broken heart. So a few physical bruises wouldn't make that much difference, would they? Hell, it might even take his mind off things, he figured. Jensen put an arm around Harry's shoulder and led him away. "Leave it for now, Harry. Let's do our fighting on the cricket pitch, like true gentlemen." Dippy thought he too should interject.
Yeah, let's lick their asses."
"That's kick their asses, Dippy lad," corrected Jensen.
Right, that was a slip of the tongue? Oh wait, that's worse, isn't it? Never mind, carry on."
And then Jensen swung his secret plan into action. "Look, Butcher, we've got one more man than you, so I think you should have one of ours." He looked around dramatically at his own players, then focused on Dippy. "You can have him. He's from the bottom end of the estate, so he's practically a cow rider." Dippy wasn't worried though. He knew that now his future best friend Harry was back, he would never allow him to play for the opposition. But Harry said nothing, and Dippy squirmed at the rejection. He thought he had at least one new friend. He'd been let down again. But no matter, because in a few hours, he would be Dippy's friend, because he would not have a choice. There just now had to be a slight change of plan. Butcher looked Dippy up and down. "He looks a bit skinny. Is he any good?" "Don't let that fool you, Butcher. He is pretty good," lied Jensen. "He'd better be, or I'll have his balls for earrings." Sports psychology was not Butcher's forte, but Dippy smiled bravely, still pleased to be part of things at the very least. So, at last, they took up their positions and the game actually began. Harry's team batted first, with the usual cries of, "You're out." "I'm not." "You're out." "I'm not." Whack! "You are now." And this went on all afternoon. But eventually, Harry's team were all out, as Jensen was unmistakably caught and their innings was over. 147 runs, gushed Jensen breathlessly. "That's a good score. That'll be difficult to beat. Well done, team." And he sauntered over to where Harry was sitting and plonked himself down beside him. He huffed with the exertion of all the exercise and opened a warm, fizzy tizer. and took a few large gulps and decided that now was as good a time as any to question Harry. "So then, how did dinner go at Victoria's? And was it fancy dress?" And he smiled at Harry's pink trousers to ease the situation. Harry knew the question was coming, but he still hadn't prepared himself for a reply. "Oh, you know, Jen, it went pretty much how I expected it to," he answered vaguely. "OK, fair enough," said Jensen. That could mean anything, he thought, and he left it at that for now. He'd broken the ice, and Harry would tell him what had gone wrong in his own time, because something had definitely gone catastrophically wrong. It was now early evening, but still hotter than hell, with annoying ladybirds buzzing around everywhere. But after just a few minutes' break, the game continued, albeit reluctantly for some in that heat. It was the cow rider's turn to bat, and Butcher was up first. He grabbed the bat and strutted to the crease and broke into a rap. "The Butcher is here, and he is batting." He actually did pause for a good 10 seconds. "All you guys are going to get twatting." Then a few seconds more. "I can bat all day, I can bat all night. 'Cause all you ladies are totally crap." The rhyme went a bit wrong at the end, but he was too hyped up to notice. Harry was not so hyped up, but he was trying to be, so he decided to bowl first. He concentrated as hard as the circumstances would allow and bowled the ball low and accurately with tremendous speed towards Butcher's bat. Butcher swung his bat hard and fast to meet the ball, but it wasn't fast enough, and it flew past him and shattered the wickets. "Yeah, how's that? Golden duck. You're out, Butcher. First ball," screamed Harry. But Butcher wasn't having any of it. "I didn't know we'd started. I wasn't even ready." "Bullshit, Butcher. You're out, and that's all there is to it." Butcher walked over to Harry and they squared up. Harry looked up at the larger boy, and Butcher spoke in a menacingly low tone. "I said I wasn't ready. Are you deaf or something?" And he poked Harry hard in the chest. Harry hesitated. Butcher looked much too big for him now, and it was still a hot day, and he just couldn't be bothered fighting him. Christ, maybe Jensen was right, and I really have gone soft, he thought. So he broke the stare with Butcher, who smirked triumphantly, and Harry wandered back and prepared to bowl again. Butcher played some good shots this time, and when he didn't, he cajoled, bullied, and cheated his way through the game. And then eventually, as fate or destiny would have it, the last two men in were to be Butcher and Dippy. "Dippy, where are you, you big streak of peace?" shouted Butcher. Dippy was asleep on the grass banking and was nudged by a cow rider. He sat up with a start. I ain't wearing a frilly dress for no man," he blurted out in a deep South Alabama accent. Everybody laughed, and Dippy rubbed his eyes and realised where he was. He blushed and groggily climbed to his feet and walked over to prepare to bat. He wasn't sure quite what to do, but he'd been watching the others before he fell asleep and had picked up some of the moves.
We only need 3 more runs to win this, Dippy. Don't let me down, or I'll stick this bat where the sun don't shine,
snarled Butcher.
I won't, and it's Dippy, not Drippy.
But he smiled broadly, because he was having a great day. This was the first time he'd ever participated in any kind of team game, so the winning and losing wasn't important to him. It was just the taking part. Of course, Butcher's philosophy was the complete opposite.
Whatever you do, don't be bowled out, because if you lose us this game, I will tear your arms off, Dippy.
Right. Okay then.
Don't you want a box, Dippy lad? Asked Jensen, who was more than ready to bowl at his victim. Dippy thought for a second.
No, I can see okay from here.
And everybody laughed. No, I mean a protector, smirked Jensen. Dippy didn't own a protector, so he pointed to his nether regions and shouted back,
It's okay, I haven't got one, thanks.
And everybody howled with laughter again.
I'm being very funny today,
thought Dippy. Jensen wasn't laughing, though, as he walked back to start his run-up. All he had on his mind was winning. He looked at Dippy, who now seemed to be a little nervous. So Jensen walked back even further to get a faster run-up to make him fully nervous. Then he turned and started his run. A few slow steps at first, and then a canter, and then an all-out sprint. Jensen swung his arm, and a second later, Dippy swung his bat, and it swished as it cut through the hot, still air with all the speed and grace of a mad axeman felling a tree. Then a strange thing happened. There was an almighty cracking sound as the ball made contact with the middle of the bat, and it flew higher and higher and further into the distance. Everybody stared in awe at the amazing shot, all except Butcher, who was already running to get as many runs as possible, as the ball hadn't gone far enough to hit the boundary. So they had to run there and back 3 times, and that would win the game, and Dippy would be a hero.
Run, Dippy, run!
Shouted Butcher. So off went Dippy like a demented gazelle, hopping, skipping, jumping across the cricket pitch, then across the playground, then up the hill, before leaping the school wall and disappearing into the bushes beyond. Butcher turned to see where his teammate was. He was nowhere to be seen, and he was not impressed.
What the bloody hell?
He screamed as Dippy was called out and the game was lost.
Where is that little streak of peace? When I find him, I'm going to kill him and then tear him apart.
And he whacked the bat angrily on the dry, hard ground with such a thud that it tremoured and kicked up a huge cloud of dust. Off he ran towards the bushes where Dippy was rustling around in. Harry knew that trouble was coming, and he would inevitably be involved, as he was every year. Only this year, he just couldn't be bothered. It wasn't the heat. It was all the emotional turmoil that was still making his head spin. It was difficult to care about anything else. Dippy eventually emerged from the bushes, covered in leaves and twigs, but grinning from ear to ear, with Butcher closing in on him fast.
Did we win?
Asked Dippy.
This is all you'll win,
Growled Butcher as he punched the bushy, bright red-haired boy in the face. Dippy fell to the ground like he'd been poleaxed. But he managed to open one eye and look out for Harry. And now Harry had no choice. He had to act. He knew what was going to happen, so in a flash he'd caught up with Butcher, who sure enough was about to kick Dippy in the stomach. Harry launched himself at the much larger boy and toppled him to the floor. A startled Butcher turned to see who had dared do this to him.
That's enough, Butcher. You've made your point. Now let's leave it at that,
ordered Harry, trying to form a truce. Butcher climbed to his feet and pointed at Harry.
Nobody pushes me like that. Nobody.
And he menacingly approached Harry, who knew he was in trouble, so he had to act fast. He took one quick step forward to close the gap between himself and Butcher. Then, with lightning speed, he swung his right fist into Butcher's left cheek. Butcher stumbled back a few steps and was shocked at the power of the punch. Harry struck again with his left and felt Butcher's nose crack, which then dripped fine spurts of deep red blood from the nostrils. Harry paused for just a split second to take aim for a third and final hit. But it was a split second too long, because before he could move, the bigger boy had struck him. Harry wasn't sure where the blow landed. He just heard the sickening thud of the impact, and immediately a buzzing filled his head. It was the hardest he'd ever been hit. His senses and strength left him instantly, and his legs turned to jelly. He made a fist and attempted to throw it, but again he heard the same sickening thud. Shocked and dazed, he tried to muster any of the strength that he had left in him. Harry's instinct screamed that Butcher was going to hit him with his right fist, and he must duck. He quickly bent his shaky knees and crouched low. He was right. Butcher's fist flew above his head and missed, which tipped him off balance just enough for Harry to stand up straight and thrust a sharp elbow sideways onto Butcher's forehead. It was a good strike. Butcher reeled, so Harry struck again with a right, then a left, and then a massive right. Butcher rocked and reeled again, but this time he fell to the floor. Harry had done it. He'd beaten the much larger boy. A wave of euphoria flooded over him. He couldn't believe it. Still dazed and confused, he tried to walk away. People were speaking to him, but he didn't hear them. All he could hear was echoes. He knew the pain of the fight would hit him soon, but he didn't care. He was even glad of it. It would take away the emotional pain of finding out the truth behind his so-called relationship with Victoria. What a mug he'd been. What a complete and utter... Harry's legs inexplicably buckled and stars flashed around his head. He fell forward, then a second later was roughly turned face up. Heavy blows rained down on him, too many to count, and they weren't stopping. He had the sickening taste of his own blood in his mouth. Through watering eyes he could see Butcher's fists pounding against his head, blow after blow. There was nothing he could do to stop them. He began to lose consciousness. But then it did stop. Harry squinted and stared at Butcher. Thin, crimson lines of blood trickled from the top of his head down to his chin, then dripped onto Harry. Butcher toppled over to reveal a blurred figure. It was Dippy. He was stood over him, holding a broken cricket bat which was covered in blood. Dippy had killed Butcher. Harry sat up. He felt sick as he stared at Butcher's blood-soaked, lifeless body. Groggily, he climbed to his feet and whispered to Jensen. "Get the tents and some supplies, Jen. We'll meet you by the river." Then he levered the cricket bat from Dippy's shaking hand, and quietly he led him away. Dippy's plan had worked perfectly.